also joining us from Canada right now, Mehak Kapoor, journalist, to help us understand what exactly is happening. Mehak, welcome to the telecast. Appreciate you joining us. Tell me more about what are you hearing, because there's still a lot of sketchy information. Is he set to resign? Is he being forced to resign? And what are the reasons that Justin Trudeau just cannot stand along anymore, even for his own government?
Thank you so much for having me there. So the Canadian Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, is expected to announce his resignation as leader of the Liberal Party. That's what we're hearing, possibly, I think, as early as Monday, January 6, 2025. This development, I believe, follows significantly internally pressure from within his party and the other political leaders as well, his opposition parties as well, with a majority of Liberal MPs expressing a lack of support for his leadership. I think the recent resignation of Finance Minister as well has, forced his resignation, to be very honest with you. And I believe this resignation is going to bring a lot of good pointers in the country, because as we can see, the country is going downhill day by day. So, let's see.
Do you believe, Mehak, that this could mean early elections? And what do you think is the reason that he's at this point? Because it appeared that there may be Pierre Poilievre stepping up pressure or Jagmeet Singh pulling out support, but it seems that he himself hasn't been able to resolve a lot of issues for Canadian society.
That's a good question. To be very honest with you, the potential for early federal elections in Canada, it could be, I'm not sure about that. But if it happens, then of course we would be expecting a lot of improvement as it's required as well. I mean, the anticipation. The anticipation also, I believe the country is very much required of the development from the immigration and the crime and the way the inflation is, going up. So I think probably the recent polls also and the recent surveys also indicate that majority of Canadians, they do favor an early election. If you ask for my opinion as well, I would also say that. And,
all right, so yes, so it looks like there could be elections coming soon, and perhaps sooner than expected on this. Mehak, appreciate you joining us at such short notice for the latest coming in from Canada. I want to return to Gaurav Sawant on this. Gaurav, what is your assessment? What do you think did not work for Justin Trudeau? Because this is not as much about the Khalistan issue, that India has been sending disclaimers about one after another, sending evidence of what could go wrong on Canadian soil. But it looks like even with domestic politics, Justin Trudeau wasn't being seen as a good leader.
Look, Justin Trudeau has been a disaster for Canada. That hope with which he'd come when he took over as Prime Minister in 2013, and the disaster that Canada is today. Illegal immigration is one part of the story. Inflation is the other part of the story. Unemployment, third part of the story. Rising crime, fourth part of the story. His own policies, his double-speak, his double standards, when he claims to be a woke liberal, and there's nothing liberal about his policies. The way he's cracked down on free speech, the way he's cracked down on dissent, the way he cracked down on truckers when they protested. So there's a major disconnect in what he says and what he does on ground. America was, and especially Donald Trump, in the run-up to elections in the United States of America, he'd mocked Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump became president-elect and won elections, he went running to Mar-a-Lago to improve ties with America, and clearly knew that wasn't possible. His own finance minister accused him, had major accusations against him about his double standards and his spending. So all of that made him hugely unpopular. Khalistan, of course, was one major issue, and it is clearly not free speech. Support to terrorism is not free speech. His attack on India, of course, that may have been more the work of American deep state using Canada to target India, but that too backfired. And everyone said, how can a G7 country like Canada level such major allegations without any evidence to back it? And India also stood firm. So it just goes on to show that he collapsed in every which way as a leader in Canada.
All right, stay on with me, Gaurav, because it looks like that this is going to be a big announcement that we can expect for Justin Trudeau. We don't have clarity yet when it can happen, but because there's a caucus meeting that's expected on Wednesday, and ahead of that key meeting, possibly, if Justin Trudeau will not want to be or cannot be the Liberal Party leader, then possibly there could be an expected announcement that he'll resign. Gaurav, do you think that there are opponents ready? Possibly, or in a scenario like this, many would have their hope up already. And I'm also thinking, the role do you believe that Jagmeet Singh could play here? Pierre Poilievre, of course, is the big opposition leader. I'm sure Jagmeet Singh also exploring his options about who could he support, which party could he support in case there are early elections.
So Jagmeet Singh himself is very, very unpopular in Canada right now. While he may enjoy the Khalistan support
Yes.
or maybe a major section of the Sikh diaspora, but Jagmeet Singh is now being called the Maserati Marxist in Canada. He's also being seen as someone who peddles and talks a lot about how he wants to improve poverty, and he's such a middle-class person, but roams around in a Maserati which no one knows who owns, and there's no clarity on that. And that is something that Pierre Poilievre has raised multiple times, as have several others, Jagmeet Singh's double standards. The Canadians are also seeing that people like Jagmeet Singh and their support for the Khalistani elements is bringing bad name to Canada. In this interconnected world, you cannot get away with supporting radicalism anywhere, whether it's radical Islamist terror that Pakistan hopes to get away with, or this kind of radicalism of Khalistanis that Canada wants to get away with. Also, ISI has spread its tentacles very deep across Canada. That is something that Canadians are also seeing. They are feeling unsafe. So many activists have been eliminated in Canada. There's so much of ISI money that's invested in Canada. The crime, gun running, drug running, places like Brampton where rule of law is virtually absent. There's so many issues that Canadians are also grappling with and perhaps looking for change. So will it be advantage? Pierre Poilievre is the biggest issue that most people think that will be much easier for him, to win the upcoming elections. But whether it happens now or after February, that question still remains. If they still want to get through with their pensions and cling on to power just so that they are entitled to their pensions in the month of February and then have elections.
Very interesting, Gaurav. But also, if I can bring in here on a side note, the recent statements by US President-elect Donald Trump, who's made it very clear about what he thinks, believes, or possibly has a plan for Canada. And Justin Trudeau didn't really end up looking like a prime minister of a nation, the manner in which he was being called a governor, if Canada can become the 51st state. So do you think in many ways it's also what's happening in the neighborhood or in the Western world and how Justin Trudeau is being seen?
Look, Donald Trump is calling a spade a spade. He's very upset with the policies that Canadians have followed in terms of borders. You cannot have such an open border that infiltration becomes infiltration, smuggling, whether it's human smuggling, drug smuggling, all of that becomes a huge challenge for the United States of America. The tariffs is a very major issue, and all those who argue that it will also adversely impact the United States of America, it's a blow that Donald Trump was willing to take to ensure that Canada toes the U.S. line, and especially on several of these issues. And ultimately, when he calls Canada the 51st state, or Governor Trudeau, Donald Trump, when he says that, it just goes on to show how he holds Justin Trudeau in sheer contempt. He does not think much of Justin Trudeau, but the situation on ground, from what we pick up from reports in Canada, is even people in Canada now do not think much of Justin Trudeau, except, of course, that ecosystem that continues to back him, including a very major section of the media, but that's also because of funding. And those issues are also now being raised in social media in Canada.
Very interesting. This was Developing Story. Gaurav Sawant and all our colleagues will be tracking the latest on what happens. Forced to resign, clearly. Remember, this is not voluntary. There's definitely been pressure on Justin Trudeau if the announcement comes in the next few hours. And all eyes will be then what happens next when Justin Trudeau is out, and in a manner which clearly appears to be extremely shameful. Who will be the next big leader of Canada?